Men often find themselves blindsided by a culture that hates authentic masculinity, and many have given in and succumbed to the ever-evolving culture and woke society. But not us. We are the ReMENant, faithful Catholic men from 3 different generations who reach through the radio to tackle current events that challenge our wills and empower the practice of the Catholic faith through thought-provoking discernment and prayer. So, if you're feeling overwhelmed and bombarded, it's time to turn your radio up and join us for The ReMENant on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The ReMENant. I am Bill Snyder, and as you can see, I am joined here by Ray Haywood and Steve Cunningham today. This is episode number 44. I can't believe we're saying that it's episode 44 of The ReMENant, but we're glad that you have been with us through these episodes. And remember, you can always follow, friend, and like us at the Carolina Catholic Media YouTube channel, and follow, friend, and like us on Facebook and all the other social media that's out there as well. The ReMENant Show is how you can find us. But thank you for doing so, because that does help us. Believe it or not, those likes and follows, they help push us up and get the message out to more and more people, more and more men that need to hear this message. So folks, today we're going to talk about something incredibly timely, and that is the Respect for Marriage Act. We're going to come up with a catchy and fun title for this, but it's like, pigs pretending to be frogs, frogs pretending to be pigs, but that's really what we're going to be talking about today, the Respect for Marriage Act that was just passed. So Ray, welcome, and Steve, welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah. So before we start, I'm going to just go into, we're going to open up in prayer, the Band of Brothers prayer. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, help us to turn to you in humility and through obedience and discipline, place you back into our hearts, our wills, our families, our faith communities, and ultimately our public square, through the Holy Spirit, in the just model of St. Joseph, through the Sacred Heart of Jesus' name we pray. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. So the topic for today's show, meaning the Respect for Marriage Act, which is H.R. 8404, this bill is presented to protect same-sex marriage. Oh my gosh. So the way that this even came into view for me is Steve actually sends out an email through Sensus Fidelium every Sunday morning. It's something I look forward to. And before we get into the show, just so that other people could have the same opportunity to get to know this stuff as I do, Steve, could you go into a little bit of what's shared in that email, how people can get onto that email list, and what is to expect, all the listings that you have in there? Please share that with us.
You just go to sensusfidelium.com, and there's a email sign up, a little box. You can sign up your email on there. And all I do is, because a friend of mine told me, is that you got it. People want to hear about a personal thing or what your thoughts for the week are. I back my mind, I'm going, no one cares about what I think. So I did it anyway. So I do it once a week. I just try to think of something that I read, try to implement it through current society, current events and things like that. And then afterwards, I give you the links for maybe if I did Clown Planet that week, or News from the Pew, or the week got the Garanger readings for the week, St. Alphonsus readings for the week, the Roman Martyrology for the week, anything for the week that comes up. Reminder of Catholic businesses. I have a tab, so anybody that's wanting to buy for Christmas, I got a whole tab, probably about 60 Catholic businesses on there that you can go on all different ideas, from beer to cigars to clothing to sacramentals, handmade things, all that, just trying to help the little guy out. And so things like that, just trying to, get people thinking. And it's really the only time ever you see my face is I'm trying to get thoughts provoked in people's minds, and then give them the beauty of smarter people like Garanger and Alphonsus, etc.
Yeah. So that's exactly what we try to do here. I always talk about scratching at, and having people turn the page for themselves, because that's exactly, we have such a limited time. What we're doing is we're placing content so that people could actually find value and scratch at it and turn the page for themselves. So anyhow, what I read on your email last Sunday that prompted me to reach out to you is exactly this. It's your exact words. So it's speaking of which, if you watch our last News from the Pew, I get into a few of those things that might be coming down the road, like our priests being arrested for wrongthink. Thanks to the marriage bill that Congress might pass this week. Well, now it's passed. This Respect for Marriage Act bill to protect same-sex marriage is now passed. Steve, can you share with us a little bit about what you think, how this could actually put our spiritual fathers in jeopardy, and also follow up with that wrong think that you shared in that email? I'm interested to hear your view.
Yeah, so everybody's probably wondering what's going on. There was yesterday on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, Mrs. Pelosi decided to, as her words, her going out party, so her gift was to pass this bill. And personally, my opinion is they're doing that because they're scared of what happened with Roe. When Roe died, you remember hearing on the talking shows about them going after, they were talking about going after same-sex marriage, contraception, and some of the idiots on TV were even talking about interracial marriage, which this is actually has in it. For some reason, they had to throw interracial marriage in there going, I didn't know that was, who do you know that's talking about that? Nobody. And go back to previous lectures or speeches. Remember the Biden speech where it looks like he's got, red in the background. You could probably hear Darth Vader's imperial music playing behind him when he calls everybody that doesn't agree with him extremists. Before that, back in June 2021, the Brandon administration came out with a thing on domestic terrorists. Who are they? And basically what they pointed out is you, us, you, me, and if you don't side with them, if you're the extremist, if you don't go with their way, you are the terrorist. You are the one. Just look at TSA. I'm the world's most hated fan of TSA. What did they turn you into? They used the excuse of terrorism to make you the enemy. You are guilty until you're proven innocent by going through a pat down, getting your privacy taken away from all this. Your kids have to get patted down like they just robbed a 7-Eleven, or whatever you want to think of it. Nuns, you've seen the photos. You are the enemies, enemy of the state. You see the movie from back in the day. That's all that people think. That's nuts. You are that person. Every time you go through it, you're getting censored for wrong think. What we brought up, wrong think is basically not thinking the same as the approved message. So if it's the approved message, it's okay. Approved message is the vaccine is a good thing. The COVID is is killing everyone in the world. You should be afraid of anybody that has Muhammad in the back of their name. You should be questioning anybody that wears a MAGA hat. Things like that. That's what the whole idea of the MAGA extreme Republicans, as Biden literally quoted. And this is not saying that if you're a MAGA fan, that's it. I like the idea of he's now a sediment contest. He has a great line of, I treat politicians as like diapers. They need to be changed for the same reason. So it's a great line. I don't want to use his name because I don't want anybody to look him up. But so they passed this, for the sea to shining sea. This is nowhere found in the Constitution. There's nobody pushing for this. There's no state legislature, but they push this in so that SCOTUS doesn't come through a bill later and then shuts it down, because that's where their fear. Notice everything's fear related. They're going to put you back in the abortions, back out of abortions. People are going to die. You're killing granny. Everything the last multiple years has got you afraid of everything. Full disclosure. After September 11th, we were flying when the planes were going back up. Why? Because it was cheap and you knew nothing was going on. And I wasn't buying that narrative to begin with. I'm a skeptic at heart. That's why I'm Catholic. As crazy as that sounds, I'm a skeptic. I dig in and look up things, and that made me come to this way. So, all right, Biden comes out and says that if you don't agree with them, you are extremists. The documents that come out from the FBI, you are domestic terrorists. This comes out side from one side of the continent to the other federally. I mean, they just basically have land-based. It's supposed to be a state issue, But no, they made it from DC down. This is why I say you want this taken down, divorce from DC. It eliminates this bill like that. Nobody likes that because they have to have 50 stars on their flag and they have to have USA chants. I know that's gonna tear some people the wrong way, but hey, you are the enemy of that flag right now. Don't like it? Tough. That's reality. Reality is conforming your mind to truth is conforming your mind to reality. That there will come after what happened with those bakers out in Colorado. They went in and then they sued them for not baking a cake, knowing that they weren't going to do that. They did that a couple other places. What's going to happen with this? I guarantee you, somebody's going to come into a parish and demand a priest to marry them. Two guys, two women, they're going to come in and try to force it. And if the father doesn't do it, they will go to the state. And the state's either going to fine them, arrest them, or throw them in jail if they don't comply. Call me crazy. Wait till that happens. What they do with these guys out in Colorado with the baking of the cake. And that was just that. Now this is a federal bill that come down. You're going to have the feds come down to your parish if you deny rights, because that's what they're saying, rights of these people to come into your parish. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me, say, hey, give me something to fight back on. Give me that objection, because I mean that's why I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Bill, you have something you want to place in here? Because I got a couple of things. Go ahead.
I mean, for me, I want to just focus on the issue of marriage. And, when you look at this from a Catholic perspective, right? Like, marriage is between one man and one woman for the lifetime of that couple. That's what it is. That's what the church teaches. And that's because it's rooted in truth. The truth of Jesus Christ, the truth of the way biology speaks to that truth. That's what it is. And you can't, no matter what society does, it doesn't change the truth. And
nowadays you got to throw that out, because after the French Revolution, the church got taken down by the state, so everything's inverted one. And then on top of that, the truth, they don't care about truth. You can't. It was at that line with you just saw that video with what's his face with the Daily Wire talking to a lady about mothers, and she goes, "That's not inclusive language." He goes, "Well, what are they?" He goes, "They're birthing people." Truth has been jettisoned. G.K. Chesterton line of sometimes your mind's so open that your brain falls out. We're playing hockey with the brain right now. Nobody knows truth. Truth is definitely thrown out the window. What is truth? That's a whole line from what Pilate said to Christ. It's whatever we want it to be. I walk up to you right now and go, I consider myself Shaquille O'Neal. I'm a 7-foot black man that plays for the LA Lakers. You must say, according to their ways right now, right, that is a truthful thing. It's so idiotically insane, but that's what we're going with here.
Oh, absolutely. No,
you're an extremist for saying what you just said.
Oh, absolutely. But there's a wonderful quote by Saint Bruno that says, when the world changes, the cross stands firm. And it has for 2,000 years. The church and its teaching has stayed firm for 2,000 years on these issues. And so, yes, you may be labeled a extremist. You may be labeled all of these things. Come on and label me one. You know what? I want to see one of these people walk into my home and label me an extremist.
Very possible that happens.
It's very possible that it happens, but
go ahead.
I want to see him. I want to see him try, because
right now, just because of an idea like that, dangerous precedent. New Zealand court orders baby removed from anti-vax parents. So things like that are happening. That's not the only one that's happened. Now, again, get with to the FBI extremist thing. What if you put a post, you and Ray put a post on Facebook? Mary, what you just said, put it on Facebook or Twitter. That gets posted around. Someone calls out to you, hey, what's coming down the pipe? Social credit score. Not only, and there's things called 15-minute cities. What is that? It means that you're not supposed to travel within outside of 15 minutes, or you get deducted and fined by the state. And this is happening in, I got the list of cities right here, or countries, cities: London, Berlin, Paris, Milan, Madrid. Also, Portland is trying this. Why is this important? All right, what's coming down the pipe with the EV cars, social credit score, digital currency? If you have wrong think, again, we go back to that, you get deducted social credit score. You may not, maybe you turn your car on and it doesn't start anymore. Remember 2026, they're coming out and people I had a guy that's a big shot with the professional Catholics out there call me nuts for this. I sent him the link showing it from mainstream media. They ignore it. It's head in the sand stuff. They're building cars that will turn, that has a kill switch on it. You don't have a social credit score that's up to par, and you're say let's go to mass. Say your parish is 15 minutes away, 20 minutes away. You're not going to be allowed to drive to said parish, or you're going to get fined for going to it. Or maybe the priest has to go do a sick call. Maybe he can't start his car to get to you because you live too far away, or because he's not for same-sex marriage. He can't even get, to you fast enough, get to the hospital. Maybe the hospital doors don't open. Maybe you don't get to, pay for whatever you need for utilities. Freeze to death like some people are doing literally right now in Germany and in Europe. I know, call me crazy. This is 1984, Orwell stuff. It's literally going on right now. So yeah, we, say we don't agree on social credit, same-sex marriage. You're not going to have your social credit score up to par, which is happening right now with the feds. They got the CBDC, central bank digital currency, in the experimental mode right now. I know I'm doing all these air finger quotes. I hate them, but that's gonna be legit soon. And you're already knowing how to do it because Apple Pay, PayPal. How many people pay with cash anymore? They've trained you to not use cash. They train you to use your iPhone, your smartphone, your dumb phone, whatever you want to call it. And when all they got to do, what happened in Canada? They cut off the truckers' bank account. Brazil, those people that don't believe in the election that happened in Brazil, they can't access their bank accounts right now either. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that if you believe in same-sex marriage or stand against it, or maybe you march in the pro-life thing coming up in January 13th in Charlotte.
Yes.
They'll know who that is. They all there's cameras everywhere. They ID you everywhere. Maybe you don't get that loaf of bread that time. Maybe you don't get to go to mass unless you have a bike to drive out there. Maybe you don't fund that parish who's raising support to build a new parish or needing to help father, pay for bills. This is real possibilities coming down the pipe. That's not outlandish.
So let me just try to place some perspective on the way that we approach this show. So we always try to put awareness out of what we could actually change. I honestly believe in my heart, the things that we could change are at our kitchen tables and in the communities that we touch. So let's look at everything that Steve just said. Let's look at it as, okay, what can we do about it? He speaks of domestic terrorists. Well, everything we spoke about community. We need to get out there. We need to start to campaign and get into the school system. We need to change the way that the thought is in our own communities. And if we do that effectively, then we can change greater. Just like in the Band of Brothers prayers, we start in our hearts. It goes to our wills, our families, our faith communities, and ultimately our public square. This is what we need to look at, but we need to identify these things that what Steve is sharing. So if you follow Steve's information, if you actually get on and go into his email list, you'll see what he's saying. When you look at a show that Steve produces, he doesn't just talk about it. He points and brings you to the information, like he just said a couple of minutes earlier, on how this is actually coming to be. One of the things I'm going to get into in my ReMENant is, how did we even get to the point where this type of a bill could be placed into our public square? So what I want to do is I want to talk about a talking point that I spoke about with Bill and Steve before we got on in this same type of context about what we touch here in our faith communities, at our kitchen tables, and in our public squares. So my wife and I were watching the news, and we saw this topic of the American Girl doll book. And I want to mention what the name of this book is. It's Body Image, How to Love Yourself. And then the subtitle is Live Life to the Fullest and Celebrate All Kinds of Bodies. This is from American Doll. So now my wife and I, we're saying, she's getting ready for work. We're starting our day, and we're hearing this in the background, and we're like, well, why would a company do this? I mean, this company is supposed to be reaching into families. Who buys from American Doll except for somebody who's going to give it to their young daughter, at least at this moment in society? Who knows what's going to happen in front of us? Maybe American Doll sees a change in the way that they're going to, their company moving forward. I don't know. But I can tell you right now, they don't care about the people who actually buy from them. So my wife and I have to question, okay, why would this even be? So here we are. Hopefully we have fathers. Hopefully we have people who will find value in what we're sharing in this and share it with the younger generation who doesn't have time to maybe put this type of perspective in front of them. And this is what I came up with. I thought of, okay, so how does this affect the company? Because it doesn't make sense to me that they would do this. Just like Disney. They had to bring somebody back in. Why? Because Disney's losing money. So that the guy who they brought back, he started this wrong thing. But it's a charade to us that he's back now like he's going to fix something. No, he started it. It's just a matter of now it's just moving shelves for the people who aren't paying attention so that the people the families who stepped away can maybe come back. Fool us. We're a bunch of fools. We're sheep. So anyhow, I want to present this. I want to scratch at you with this. It's called industrial complex. And I'm going to read to you what that is. The industrial complex is a socioeconomic concept wherein businesses become entwined in social or political systems or institutions, creating a bolstering of profit economy for these systems. So now that doesn't exactly apply to what they're doing, but what it does apply to is making this mindset normal. We're in the process. We're here. We're at the threshold of this type of change. If we, as fathers, husbands, young men, don't realize that we can change things in our communities, in our families, at our kitchen tables. Wait until you hear my ReMENant challenge. This is important that we recognize that we can make a difference. When you look at the way that our country voted, if you look at the map of America, it's extremely red. It's only blue in certain places. And I'm telling you the truth, I loved our country when I was younger, when we were toe to toe, when we were literally, when we had a democratic, leadership, we had certain things put into society. When we had the Republican leadership, we gained from both. We learned from adversity. We can't learn from adversity anymore. There's so many challenges in our faith community, and we have these extremes. So the extremes are what's taking up all the air. So we, as fathers, husbands, spiritual fathers, especially deacons, people of influence who actually have the breath to put this type of content out, we need to make our families and our communities aware. What we're hearing doesn't have to be truth to us. The way that we approach things, we can't shrink back. We have to fight for the good fight to say this is wrong. We need to go into our school systems and actually be elected into positions where we can take these books out of our school systems. We have a beautiful Catholic school system here in our diocese. The man who runs it, Greg Monroe, he's making great change. And, he's trying so hard. But we have, and I don't know this from him, I'm just saying from myself personally, we have parents that have this wrong thing. We have students that are entitled and they find no authority because we've allowed our children we don't tell them when they're doing things wrong, we don't tell them they're doing it wrong. And if I stepped out of place when I was in high school, if I didn't stand up during the, anything, you were grabbed by your shoulder, lifted up. Your hat was smacked off. God bless America. What? You're sitting down, you're eating your hot dog? Your hot dog's knocked out of your hand. We don't have, and I'm not saying that we have to go to that extreme, but we're not educating the next generation on what's right and what's wrong. And what Steve was talking about earlier about truth, if you were to read the book, Tools to Ready to Journey, 13 chapters lead to a call of action of what is truth. We need to understand what situational truth is of our physical world and what objective truth is in our spiritual world. I don't mean to take up all the air in this conversation. Bill, you got some thoughts on this?
Here's the thing. I just think, again, when we're looking at the way society is going, and Ray and Steve, you've done a great job at really laying out the trajectory that society is on, because that's the reality. Like we're on a trajectory that we may never recover from. I mean, let's just be honest. So what do saints do? What do saints do? I wrote an article on my blog a few years ago, the day after the January 6th riots. And I pointed to an apparition of Our Lady of La Salette as an example. I don't know if you know the story of Our Lady of La Salette or not, but this is what I think of when we're talking about this trajectory that we're on. Our Lady said a lot of different things, but she wore, what's more important than what she said during the apparitions is really what she wore. And she wore a crucifix around her neck. On one end of the horizontal cross beam, there was a hammer. On the other end, there was a pincers. And she never spoke of this. She never spoke of it in any of the apparitions, but it was evident that the children knew exactly what she meant by wearing this. You can either drive the nails further into my son's flesh, or you can grab the pincers and you can pull them out. And you see, that's what we are called to do every single day. We have a choice. You have a choice. And Ray said it beautifully. What we can impact is around our kitchen tables and in our communities, in our local communities, in our family. Are you going to be the pincers and remove the nails, or are you going to be the hammer and drive them in further? Let me tell you what saints do. And we can jump into our saint, but let me tell you what saints do. They get down on their knees and they grab the pincers and they pull them out. It's not like, going to some carnival ride, picking up the hammer and whacking the thing to see how high you can get it. That's not what this is. No, saints don't play the carnival game. Whack a hammer and walk away. They pick up the pincers and they dig in to Christ's flesh and they remove the nails.
Yeah, Leo DuPont said that apparition confirmed the apparitions of the Holy Face that Sister Maria St. Pierre was getting at the Carmel, which goes into desecration of Sundays and holy days obligation. And you look, I compare this to, people don't like it when I do it. Thanksgiving was a couple of weeks ago for the United States, the holy day of obligation for the state. The Catholic Thanksgiving is November 11th, St. Martin Day. You go drive down the street on the U.S. Thanksgiving Day, and you can't roll a grenade and hit anything. Everything's closed. The roads are empty. No one's shopping. No one's doing. You go on a Sunday, Go yesterday on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. What'd you see?
Oh, absolutely.
Traffic everywhere, shopping going on, everyone's working. There's no day of rest. And that was part of La Salette right there. This goes back to what you guys were talking about. How you do this? Okay, Catholics, it's about time, long past time to get serious. You can say, I'm Catholic, I love the faith, I love this. That's great. Talk is cheap. Let's see some action. I'm a sports guy. You can talk about how good you are till you're blue in the face. How good are you when the rubber hits the road?
But
no one sees you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the thing. I want you to think about that crucifix too, because here's the thing. It implies that Christ is lifeless at that moment, right? That question that is being posed is to you is when Christ is lifeless, hanging on the cross, right? It's not when he's still alive. No, it's when he's lifeless. Do you have enough to believe that he is going to do what he said he is going to do, which is rise from the dead? Do you remove the nails, or now do you just whack another hammer and say, stay there, buddy? Or throw him in the pit behind? Like, what are you doing?
Part of the problem, or you're part of the solution?
It is so true, though. And you see, saints don't look at just the horror and the ugly, beaten, bruised body. They look at the potential of what that body can be.
The growth,
right? You see, we are not looking, and I think that this is a great thing for us to remind all people, especially on the show. We are not looking at the world, because the world that Christ said is going to fall, it's going to crumble, it's going to be turned to dust. Right? We are looking beyond what we can be, which is saints. So throughout history, the ones that have become saints have looked at the ugly, bruised, beaten, disgusting, destroyed, lifeless body of Christ and said, you know what? I believe you're going to I believe you're going to rise. I believe you're going to do it. And I'm going to take the nail out.
That was Dismas. St. John Chrysostom said that Dismas had more faith than every prophet and saint put together, because he saw Christ on the cross dying and believed that was him.
Yeah. I mean, that
we got it easy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
You ain't kidding.
Right.
Which is the problem why you asked, Ray asked, how did we get here? Patrick Peterson has a great line. He was on a Rogan show, and he asked him the same thing. He goes, you get there by one step at a time, gradual. You push, you see how far the state pushes until you push back, and then they let it go. And then you push back again, and then they do it again, and then they do it again. And all of a sudden you're 3 miles from where you were without even thinking of it. Think about it. Where's how we got from here? Just a little bit from TV shows, that book After the Ball. You get a little, the camel's nose got underneath the tent on TV shows. Now all of a sudden we're talking about stuff like this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's slipped.
And here's a sermon I just heard the other day. So when Ray, and I agree with Ray about getting into schools and getting into elections and all that. People have heard me say that many times. Act locally, think locally. Forget the federal elections because they are worthless. You know they're fixed, so why do you think you're participating in them? And it's rinse, repeat. Hey, it's fixed. They're all been fixed. You can look that all the way up to the beginning of this union, a federal union, not one country, 50 countries, one federal linked to one constitution, which all 50 states have their own constitution. Hence why you got to worry about local, because you can beat this at the local level. Somebody sues maybe at the North Carolina Supreme Court, maybe you can topple this thing. Anyways, he goes into the rosary, talking about David being Goliath. Simple 5 stones. People laughed at him, didn't go in with armor. He took down their man. It's something like, we could think about doing XYZ, all these big things. A simple 15-minute prayer, if we do it devotionally and in the right way, can work wonders. Because it's going to suck. That's England. Those guys were much holier than us, and they got gutted. And it says on top of it, walking joyfully 3 cheers for joy. That's, when if a priest goes down, gets arrested for this, I would love to hear him say, yep, Deo Gracias, 3 cheers for joy. But we gotta back them up. We want our priests to be strong and do this and do that. They gotta know that we got their backs.
And you have to be willing to go to jail. I'll never forget, and this conversation is great. I'll never forget Cardinal George in Chicago.
Yep.
When Cardinal George said one time, he goes, "I will die in my bed. My successor will die in jail, and his successor will die a martyr."
Yeah.
And those words stuck with me. I remember I was working at a Catholic radio station in Illinois at the time, and Cardinal George was months away from dying. And we drove all the way down to record him saying the rosary in his private residence for our radio station. He agreed to pray the rosary publicly on our station. I have never witnessed a more saintly man in my life, who knelt there, body riddled with cancer, body just riddled with cancer. And what did he do? He humbly, quietly led us in our small group, and you could know that he was leading millions of people that were going to be listening to this long after he was gone. I mean, just a steady, humble leadership, but it's so true. Bringing in the rosary, this is what saints do. They just get it. And so, yeah, these are the times we're living in. And I think Cardinal George was a little bit of a prophet there, because, we can see that easily happening, as Steve was saying earlier. Like, this is something that we could, easily see happening in society.
You mentioned the apparitions of Our Lady. The approved apparitions. What does she say all the time? Penance. As one guy said, "Why do you think she said that at Lourdes?" Because nobody was doing it. That was in the 1860s. What do you think we're doing now, or 1850s? What do you think we're doing now? You think we're a lot of guys doing penance? It's a fasting season of Advent, a penitential season of Advent. How many people are doing a fast? Just a simple one. The St. Martin fast is 3 days a week. How many do that? None. Most none. How many doing penance? Most none. Adoration? Most none. We need to get pounded in the face before we change our ways. It will be coming.
Check this out. Listen to this. So at the end of most of our episodes, I think for the last 4 or 5, I've been saying something, and I think I'm going to place it in right here. Exactly what you're talking about. So grace flows through the church, and we as a people need to recognize and place authority back in the hands of our ordained priests, the Eucharistic face of God on the altar, so that we can once again receive that grace-filled authority back at our kitchen tables. I believe in my heart, until we start placing that authority back with our spiritual fathers, we're not going to have this grace to fight this fight. We need to place the authority back on the altar in the Eucharistic face of God. We need to understand what real presence is. We have so many problems here. We have so many simple answers, and we're going to get to that too. The ReMENant that we've been given all the answers. We're just a bunch of fools. We're allowing the chatter of the day to take away 2,000 plus years of all the answers that we have. Nobody has the answers that we have here at the Catholic Church. It's amazing. And Steve, you picked an awesome saint to marry up with this episode. You picked Saint Ambrose. Hey, Bill, would you mind to read what we put together on that?
Sure, no, I'll do it. So Saint Ambrose was born around 340 AD into a Christian family. He was his father was an important official in the government of the Roman Empire, frequently identified as the prefect of Gaia, which is the governor of modern France, Britain, Spain, and Portugal. His mother was a devout woman from a prestigious family. Ambrose had 2 siblings, both of whom are recognized as saints. When his father died, Ambrose was about 14 at the time. He moved to Rome. As a young man, Ambrose followed his father's footsteps and entered into imperial service. In 372, at the age of 32, he was given the responsibility for the region around Milan. This was a fairly prominent position, since Milan at the time was one of great regional capitals of the Roman Empire. The prominence of the city as an imperial seat made it a center for certain controversies of the day, and Ambrose, by his prominent secular position, was thrust into these controversies. Christianity was becoming increasingly popular in the highest ranks of Roman officials, although it was not to become the state religion. As it rose in political influence, the church became torn by the Arian heresy's denial of the full divinity of Christ. In fact, when Ambrose arrived in Milan in his government capacity, Milan's bishop was an Arian. 2 years later, the bishop died, and the Orthodox and Arian factions of the city's laity struggled and argued with each other over choosing a successor. Ambrose, as the secular governor, pleaded for peace and order amid the tumult. Using the words of his wisdom, he did everything to prevent chaos. It had a surprising effect that he did not expect. Both sides of the crowd were impressed with Ambrose's eloquence and fairness. Suddenly began calling Ambrose himself to be made a bishop. Ambrose for bishop, they cried out. Imagine that. Ambrose resisted them. He did not want to become a bishop and felt that he was ill-prepared for such a vocation. Although he was a lifelong follower of Christ, he was still an unbaptized catechumen. Ambrose fled and attempted to hide, but that didn't last long. The family that was hosting him eventually gave away his hiding place, and the people insisted that he become their bishop. Therefore, he was baptized, ordained a priest, and consecrated a bishop within a week. Now, imagine that. What a week, right? 2 years later, as the emperor of Milan died, he was succeeded by his young son, whose Arian mother became the effective power in the region. The empress gave new laws severely punishing actions of opposing Arianism. So in 385, he was ordered to turn over the use of 2 churches to the Arians in the imperial court. Execution was possible under the punishment for his disobedience. Undeterred, Ambrose refused. Thus, this began a long controversy which put him in personal danger. He declared, "If you demand my person and I am ready to submit, carry me to prison or to death, I will not resist. But I will never betray the Church of Christ. I will not call upon the people to succumb. I will die at the foot of the altar rather than desert it. The confusion and the tumult of the people I will encourage. I will not encourage, but God alone can appease it." So, I mean, just amazing, saint and man. And I mean, think about all the things that we've been discussing here and just how perfect he is for this conversation. Even I would love to know what that week what it was like for him, that he was baptized and became a bishop all in 1 week. Maybe when we get to heaven, I'll have to ask him, because boy, that sounds like a heck of a week.
Steve, I got a little bit more before we get to your perspective on it. St. Ambrose is worthy of imitation. St. Ambrose accepted his acceptance of personal suffering, firm resolve in matters of principle, and level-headed tone allowed him to help bring a peaceful resolution to a dangerous situation. We should strive to imitate him. We can ask ourselves, are we steadfast in our beliefs? Do we recognize proper political authority, but understand when it oversteps its bounds? Are we ready to suffer for the faith and for the church? I mean, these are things that were written literally into the research that was done to place St. Ambrose into our episode today. These are of the time. Don't they ring true to today? You know, St. Ambrose is one of the original doctors of the church. His wisdom, fortitude, and charity makes him a great saint for our times and for all times. Steve, share with us.
So that I do Garnier, so I'm reading into the channel. I had to redo all these from the beginning of the year. So one of the lines he got asked was some couriers there to accuse him of being a tyrant. And Ambrose told him, no, bishops are not tyrants, but have often to suffer from tyranny. He also had a line, he goes, "I hate the religion of the Neros," because they were trying to push the idolatry in there. So that a Christian emperor can only honor one altar, the altar of Christ. He said, basically, we're talking about the rights. How tough is this one to say? the object of he goes, this is from Garanger. He protested against the attempt whose object was to bring a Christian prince to recognize that false doctrines have rights, and which would, if permitted to be tried, rob him of the one only master of nations of the victories which he had won. That goes back into the Catholic idea of error has no rights. You can't go into a second grade class and say 2 + 2 = 8. Error has no rights. Error, like evil, has no rights. So was a Gabriel Garcia Moreno in Ecuador would say that as well. Protestants have no rights. Protestant religion has no rights. Mormonism has no rights. Jewish religion has no rights. Muslims have no rights. Liberalism has no rights. It's Catholic or bust, as Hilaire Belloc said. It's either chaos or Catholicism. And guess what the world has picked? It's rejected Catholicism. So we're in a heap load of chaos right now. And again, that's not politically correct to say. I'm not a PC guy. I do not accept the religious liberty of Americanism. That goes, hey, the religious liberty of the First Amendment. Nope. Catholic only. You don't have the right to err. Christ commanded, God commands one way of being worshiped, and he doesn't like heresy. And if you read the lives of these saints, they didn't like heresy either. You have the liberty you have the okay to be one, and that's not good, but you don't have the right to preach on the sidewalk or anything like that. It's Catholic or bust. Even though 15 Catholics voted against this bill that we were talking about, 15 of the 56 Catholic Republicans in the House, 27% of them complied with the Democratic-sponsored legislation. There are 40 of the Catholic ones in the House stood their ground, voted no on this bill. So it should have been 100%. But again, the other guys, Mormons, guess what they did? They were all for this. Bunch of other religions, they were all for it. I can't swing a dead cat on Twitter without seeing somebody, especially in North Carolina, being for what happened yesterday. And that should make you mad, holy anger in a sense, not to the point of sin, but to do something about it, to hit your knees, as they keep saying, to do something that way, make a change, be the change in a sense.
Yeah. We're going to swing into our ReMENant now. So, Steve, I'm going to go first. Bill will go next, and we can't wait to hear you, chime in on a ReMENant for today. So my ReMENant is a couple of years back, I wrote this thing on divine love. My son, Frankie, started going out with a young girl when they were 16. And when they were both about 21 years old, they grew apart. So during that 16 to 21, they had no idea what they were looking for. So when they parted, I wrote this divine love for both of them so that they can understand what it looks like in front of them. And I just want to read one line of it that applies to this Marriage Act. If you'd like to hear it, Bill actually put it to music, and he read it. And there's a whole thing on YouTube. You could look it up. My name, Ray Haywood, divine love. It'll come right up to you. But anyhow, here's just one sentence of it. Now, in the selflessness of our oneness, we become the vessels of the breath of life ourselves, as we willfully take our rightful place in the sanctity of the family's trinity of mother, father, and child. Now, this is objective truth. This is divine love. This is the way that God created us. These are those simple things that I was speaking about before. So me personally, I believe that there's 3 trinities in life. There's trinities of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There's trinities of the family, which is mother, father, and child. And I say mother first because as husbands and fathers, we put our families first. Our mothers, our children always come before us. When we get up to receive, our family goes in front of us. We wait. Our family comes out of the aisle. Our families are always in front of us. They always come before us. And the third trinity is physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, which if you don't have balance in any one of those, you're not going to find center in life. And the spirituality, for a lot of young men, they don't realize they have to work on that in order for them to actually find center. So they're always, as we get out of the gathering stage and we grow older and we recognize we have all the things of our physical world, but somehow or other, we got a hole inside of us. That's a God-sized hole because we never worked on our spirituality. And if we're not humbled yet, we can never figure it out. So it's through humility that we can actually come into that center of the spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. So I encourage you to check that out. But this is all part of God's divine design, giving us as simple awareness and the answers for us all to navigate salvation history, throughout the ages. This is how simple it is for us. We confuse everything. As men, in our sins of omission, this is important that we realize this. We have allowed the confusion in our physical world to get to the point where a bill like this can even be presented in our public square. How could this be? What Steve was talking earlier about, this, they chipped away at us little at a time, but I want you to know what we see in the media is only a narrative. What we do at our kitchen tables and in our communities, that's what we have control over. Think local, everything, like Steve was saying. So my challenge is for us to push through the thoughts of keeping silent around our younger family members and our children when topics like these come up. I can't tell you how many times, just to not have friction in the house, a father or a mother, when this type of topic comes up, instead of addressing it, they don't do anything. They don't use the teachable moments to reach into what we can actually change. You recognize that you have opportunity of changing here. So this brings me into a conversation that I just had recently with Deacon Martin, where he challenged me to read Acts 8. And with the focus on verse 30 and 31. So that's Acts 8, verse 30 and 31, which shares the message of how can I understand unless someone instructs me? And that is important. But I want to share with you something. When I was young, I lived across the street from my grandmother and my grandfather, Rocco and Blanche Finelli. So my grandmother, Blanche Finelli, she would sit me down and she would tell me, Raymond, you don't have to listen to me, but you have to hear me. And all those things that she said to me rung true throughout my life. She's right. I didn't listen to them when she said it. But somebody, in the same way that Deacon Martin shared with us, unless we're told, we don't know. We as parents, we as people we have to say these, we have to bring this awareness to our communities. We have to share this type of mindset with our spiritual fathers, help them not to push back, especially our younger spiritual fathers who don't have the knowledge and the wisdom that us older men have seen and lived through. So this is important. I hope that I really scratched at you with this ReMENant. Bill, what do you got for us?
Awesome, Ray. I want to share just a story from yesterday from my ReMENant challenge. And yesterday, we were taping this the day after the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to noon mass. I also am a stay-at-home dad for the most part. I have a full-time ministry, but I stay at home. I work from home. And so I take care of my 18-month-old son, Elvin, and he's 19 months now. It's crazy how time flies. But I said to him, let's go to mass. Now, ordinarily, when we take my son to mass, I have my wife and me, but I was just me. My wife was at work yesterday. And so I went to mass by myself at noon with the 19-month-old. And let me tell you, that is not easy. You got snacks, he's wants to sit in your lap, he wants to explore the Blessed Mother statue, he wants to walk all around, he wants to clap after every time the person has sung a song, there's all of that. He's cheering yay, when the priest is giving us homily and all that. But yet we did it, right? And it comes time for communion, and he's the only kid in this entire church. He's the only child. And it comes time for communion, and we go up for communion. I receive communion, and the priest goes, "God bless you, little buddy," and gives him a blessing. And I'll tell you, the tears in my eyes as I walk away, with Jesus in my heart and my son in my arms, like this is what we need to do. Like, we need to take our family, to take our sons, we need to take our daughters into our arms and bring them to the heart of the Father. In this crazy world. There's all this craziness around us, and there's even craziness in my son's heart, right? Like, he's 19 months old. He wants to run around and play with trucks. Like, that's what he wants. But by leading and showing and guiding, just do it. Just do it. It was difficult. It wasn't easy. Doing church with a 19-month-old by yourself. But it was worth it. It was worth it for that moment when I was able to receive and hold my son in my arms. Like, it is worth every minute of that. All the running around in the narthex and all the pointing out the statues and clapping and cheering for people as they're reading the stuff. The petitions. He would clap and cheer. I'm sure a few of the gray hairs were pretty annoyed that were sitting in front of us, right? But it's just, there's a beauty when we as fathers can take our children, take our sons at our arms, and just lead by example. And so I encourage you to do that, no matter how difficult it is. That's my ReMENant challenge. It's not going to be a holy day of obligation or a Sunday or whatever. That you can do that. You don't have kids that age. But my encouragement to you is just take your kids in your arms and lead by example, because that's what this is going to take to overcome this. It is local. That's my ReMENant challenge. So how about you, Steve?
I'll keep it short and sweet. Better get serious. I'm not for emotion. I'm not for sugarcoating. You better get serious out there. Study up on the faith, learn the faith, pray harder, pray better, focus, become the better husband, better man, better father, better wife, better whatever. Better get serious.
So we have the men's conference coming up on March 18th, and that diocese-wide novena to St. Joseph is definitely going to happen. It's maturing into something that's beautiful. It's going to start on the 10th. It's going to end on the 18th. We're actually going to recite it at the men's conference. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be easy for us to download. It's going to be in different places for us to download. Beautiful thing. And if you could sign up for tickets now. And if you use the promotional code of FSJ, you'll actually save $5 on the cost of that ticket. So also for the apostolate that is Carolina Catholic Media Network, on Wednesdays now, we're going to be saying a prayer to St. Joseph for a special sponsorship, a franchise, a financial sponsor to help us. We're hoping that somebody can step up and see the value of what we're doing here to place this type of content for our younger. This is the way that our young Catholics actually are going to connect. Media is the way that they're going to connect. So we need to place this type of content and build this out successfully in our diocese. So please, if this touches your heart, step closer to us and help us to forge our next steps in this apostolate. So Bill, do you have anything?
I know. I thank you all for tuning in. Again, don't forget to follow, friend, and like us on all the social media platforms. That is important, folks. That is how we grow. But until next time, all of us here at the ReMENant and the Carolina Catholic Media Network, may God bless you and your families.
Thank you for joining the ReMENant today. For more information about us, email theremnantshow@gmail.com. That's the ReMENant show@gmail.com.